Well, welcome everybody to Think Twice Radio and the Greg Sterlice Show. How to?
It's not really the Greg Sterling show.
Well, I was going to finish the sentence with how to emotionally satisfy a woman.
I know. I think we should clarify that from now on. That it's not the Greg Sterling show, because really it's starring you, Beth. Because if anything, it's the Beth Kennedy show. How to emotionally satisfy a woman.
Well, welcome everybody. We've got a full house in studio and on Zoom. In studio, we have, of course, Greg Sterlice, Paula Wakowiak, Kenny Vaughn. On Zoom, we've got...
And Richard Wicca.
Oh, and Richard Wicca's in the house, too. I'm so sorry,
I am
Richard.
in the house, yes.
Your house, in fact. Thank you very much. And on Zoom, we
really?
have James Walker. God bless you. And Paul Drajum. And we also have Celeste has joined us.
Yes.
So thank you, everybody.
Yay.
We're it's really crowded, but it's nice. It's comfortable. And I think we're going to have a good show. We've had a little bit of a preamble to talk to each other. Is there anything, we started talking about attachment styles.
Yeah, that's something that I unfortunately, my friend Gloria has been looking into that on YouTube a lot and trying to dissect a relationship that she's in right now. And I wish she was here to talk about it. It's not something that I know that much about, but I just thought you might be something you would be interested in learning about. That's why I brought it up before the show. But
What does attachment style mean?
attachment style is just the way you have a relationship with other people. You know, you can either be clingy or resistant, aloof. So I'm not the one to really have that conversation.
I think your attachment style probably has to do with how you were raised and how you dealt with your parents and the family dynamic.
And how they made you feel, right? So I don't know. Does anybody else know anything about attachment styles that on our?
No, we're all ignorant of it.
No, I know. So I think it would be a good thing when next couple weeks or something we
Do a
could
little
have
research.
Gloria
I was thinking
come on.
about how you said she was dissecting the relationship. Do you think it's sometimes good to do a dissection of a relationship?
Well, it was a relationship she had that ended because, she had expectations about him staying in touch, and he had space issues, and so she was trying to figure out what it was that about the two of them that wasn't communicating correctly. Yeah. And now they're working on it. The two of them are working on this problem, and they're both real serious about it, which I think is fabulous.
That is. It sounds a little bit to me like there wasn't when you lose a job, when you're fired, and you say, "Can I please have an exit interview?"
Feedback.
And,
yeah, I'd like some
find out
feedback. Yeah,
exactly.
That's a
we're
good
hitting all the marks.
That's a good point, because you know what? Most of the time, especially now, people just ghost people, right?
Just disappear.
Instead of walking into the situation and saying, I liked this, and this about the relationship, but honestly, I can't deal with this, and then maybe you can fix whatever's wrong, or maybe the other person isn't even aware.
Maybe you don't understand it fully too.
Right. But if your needs aren't being filled in a relationship, that's a valid reason to end that relationship.
That's why my book has 69 rules and 10 commandments of love, because there's at least 79 aspects that woman's gonna want from a man, and whether it's the boyfriend or the husband. And if they're not getting what they want out of those 79 things, they can ask for more.
Yeah, but it's the same for men too. I mean, if you're not getting what you need from the relationship,
Yeah, but I'm not really concerned with men. I'm concerned with making men better because I think men are more horrible in relationships than women are generally. That's the whole point of the book and the program we're doing.
Right, because the thing is, women are raised to be nurturing and
nurturing and caring, and men are raised to be pricks.
Greg, do you find that a lot of your male friends don't understand the theory behind the book or
Almost
the purpose?
all of them. Well, they don't understand the purpose.
Too loud.
They don't understand the purpose or the or why they'd want to do it. They say things like, "Why would I want to do that?" Basically, they all say, "Why would I want to do that? Why would I try to emotionally satisfy a woman?" They think it's ridiculous, and the women think it's a great idea.
Was that
generally.
you chuckling there, James?
James?
Ooh, me?
Yeah. Well,
Brian.
I think that's the crux, is that women are taught to be caring and nurturing and giving, and men are taught that they will be the recipients of that caring and nurturing and giving. And I think that it's changing now with the younger generation pretty much, but not
Yeah, but I'm
completely.
concerned with the older generation, not the kids, and I want it to change men for the better. Like we could ask Paul or Brian or Celeste if they have any thoughts on this,
Yeah.
because they're new to the show. Of course, we can't hear Brian, so that's
Well,
Yeah.
I'm looking.
Yeah, so if you talk to Celeste,
Celeste, can you hear
Yes.
me?
I hear you.
Yeah. Do you think that the older generation needs the males of the older generation might need a refresher course on how to emotionally satisfy a woman?
I'm gonna say this, that when you talk about the home you were raised in, I think there's a difference between a man who was raised in a house full of women, for example.
Mhm.
He was, a brother who had 3 or 4 sisters. If
Right.
he was where the grandmother was the head of the family versus the grandfather or the father. So I think a lot depends on modeling.
Mhm.
True.
A lot depends on cultural tradition.
Good point.
A lot depends on what they've been told that a man is supposed to be, and so that's a very difficult thing. So I think older, because of the way our Western society was constructed, and probably I'm going to say Western European society was, because women weren't allowed to do certain things. We were only assigned certain jobs. We were only assigned certain ways to earn money that were considered respectable or decent for a woman. So, that put the scales of, justice, if you will, or equity or equality, skewed somewhat. So women were subservient, and then men were, advised in no uncertain ways that, you have to be the provider. Men identified with their work, women identified with the way they looked and held together the home. So,
Do you think that as when men were working on being the providers, that also there was an unspoken undertone of my way or the highway, because they were the breadwinners, and emotionally satisfying a woman didn't matter as long as there was a roof over the house?
well, I think some of that, again, in some households, depending on how that philosophy evolved, was probably there. It was a burdensome, it's a huge responsibility, and if it wasn't happening well, men did not want to acknowledge their deficits in that department. So the best way to do that is shut the woman up, right?
Yeah, well, I think if I can say something about this, as a young girl looking at relationships like marriages, a teenager,
Hmm.
I never thought it looked like very much fun, and
Yeah.
my mother would say things like, "Don't you want to settle down and get married and have a man buy you nice things?" And this was what she expected. And I said, "No, I want to buy myself nice things."
well,
And
if you buy yourself nice things, Paul, then that can leave the door open to find a good man who
Well,
might be
that's-
emotionally satisfying
that's
you.
exactly-
Forget about him buying you stuff.
Right.
Make sure that he's emotionally
But-
into you.
I saw so many women stuck in relationships and I I just talked to a young woman who had to have a conversation with her mother-in-law about how she was leaving a relationship with her son. And she told her, she says, I just want you to know that I've tried and I don't know what else to do. And the mother-in-law, the mother of the
son.
guy, said, if I would have had some independence, I would have left a long time ago.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
because
well,
she
things
didn't,
have changed.
she
That
didn't,
seems to be
right,
what it was.
she didn't know how to take care of herself. She didn't know how to earn a living.
Well,
And
Paul, do you know how to emotionally satisfy a woman? And have you done that in your life?
Well, of course.
And how do you do it? What's the means?
There's no one way. I mean,
Well,
it's a
what's
lot
one of the ways?
you just have to listen to, what she's saying and respond to the way she might ask you to do something. And, typically, if I'm doing something, hey, don't bother me or whatever. I'm not going to drop what I'm doing to go take care of what you want. And so you learn to compromise and
that sounds
and
great,
do the-
Paul.
well, you learn to compromise, and you do what you got to do. They say happy wife, happy life. So
Yeah.
I think listening is one of the key things that everybody, male, female,
Yeah.
human beings,
Yeah.
all want to be heard and acknowledged for what they're saying.
Absolutely. That is a human trait. You are right.
And are we listening with both ears, or are we just listening half-heartedly? Are we able to process
I
the
got
information?
I've got sinuses. I can't hear nothing.
Oh.
All right.
Well,
Good excuse.
When you're
It
was fine in the beginning.
when you're talking to somebody, you can tell, especially if they're getting annoyed, you can tell that they're just planning on what they're going to say next.
The blank look in their
Right.
eyes.
Yeah. They're calculating what the next line's going to be. And
We have to be attentive.
attentive. Good word, Paul.
That is.
Brian, how do you emotionally satisfy women in your life all these years?
Start with one thing or more. No, listening is probably the most critical thing that I've never really mastered, honestly.
Truth.
If there's still
No.
time, Brian.
Yes, there's still time.
No, I mean, I've worked on it, but, I had an argument with my wife before we got married once, and it was at my mother's house in Kenmore. And we went outside and argued in the car because we didn't want to upset my mom. And I said to her, I don't really understand why you're even angry. Can you explain to me exactly why you're angry right now? Because it was
No.
sort of one of those, a lot of fights start. The fight isn't necessarily about what you're arguing about.
Right.
Yeah.
It's
It's
just
about things that happened before, things that have been brewing that haven't been addressed, that should have been talked about maybe.
mhm.
And so she said, do you really want to know? I don't know if you could understand it. And I said, no, I really want to know exactly what's going on in your brain. I've always wondered exactly how women think, and I want you to explain to me every step on how you got so to the point where you were screaming at me so loud we had to leave the house because my mom was freaking out. And so we sat in the car and she said, okay, are you ready? And it took her 20 minutes. And I listened to everything she said. And I literally, to be trite, had my fucking mind blown. Because she literally was thinking on so many different levels. And she was thinking about things that happened even 2 years before or a year before and how connected to her, to her mother, to her sister, to me, back to her dad, and I said, wait, are you serious? That was all on your mind just now, 20 minutes ago in the house. I said, men do not think anywhere near on that many levels at the same time.
Nope.
Do you think that's a gift of women?
Well,
It's just that it's like I could use the word comp.
we've lost you.
there, Brian. You went.
Okay.
He didn't want us to
Oh.
hear that part.
We can't hear you, Brian. We still can't hear you. Is somebody trying to call you on your phone? Because sometimes that happens.
It was too bad he was getting some good stuff there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
James, how do you feel?
You
Oh,
awake?
come on.
Do you
No,
think-
James, have you
I
also
know, but do you
wanted
think-
to try and understand how women think? Like Brian was saying, Les, I really tell me what you're thinking because I really want to understand how women think. Although Brian, you were just going to learn how that one woman was thinking.
I want in on this one. We're going to make $1 million movie if you can tell us how a woman thinks.
Can you hear me?
Yes,
Now we can, but you're low.
I must have been moving
there we
the,
go, yeah.
the phone too much.
you're good.
Yeah, you're good. But you might.
So you said it was complicated what your wife told you?
Well, the word complicated is too simple. It's like complex.
There's an oxymoron for you.
No, it's just that women think, the way I would say it simply is they think about how everything is affecting everyone around them at the same time.
Yeah, I think we do.
Men are more pointed in the way they attack problems and the way we look at life. We look at stuff like a hunt. Like, to me, that's how I think of it. Like, we attack the priorities we have. We don't necessarily, we'll think about like all the immediate ramifications and maybe your wife and whatever, but you're not thinking about all this stuff that's happened, like going back even in months ago, everything people said about this thing that we were talking about, and then how it tied into everybody you're close to, that you love. And I was literally just flabbergasted. My mind completely changed.
But okay, so don't you think that there's something to be said for directness? Like as soon as something happens that
yeah.
hurts your feelings, to say, okay, I
Say
don't know
something.
if you meant it like that, but you know what you said hurt my feelings, and this is why.
Don't let it build up.
Yeah, don't let it build up, because
Nip it
that
in the
sounds
bud.
like she was building it up over, you know.
Well, I don't think she was necessarily a great communicator herself, but on like issues that were bothering her. And I'd say, you mean this has been bothering you for 2 years and you're talking about it now?
Yeah.
Like, why
yeah.
didn't you tell me you were upset about this or that? And, you know,
The fear of not
So
wanting
that-
to upset others.
Right.
It sounds to me like what you're describing is empathetic thinking the women are capable of doing, where
okay.
the connection to everyone and remember.
That's a good word. Yeah.
Yeah, especially if you've had a childhood where it was a volatile childhood, where, you know, if you said the wrong thing, your parents would explode at you.
Shut you down.
So you would weigh everything very carefully before saying it. And also, I think sometimes people in relationships don't say things right away because they don't want that other person to
Be hurt.
to be not only be hurt but leave them. I think there's a lot of people
Right.
who have issues with being deserted.
That reminds me, we were talking about Seinfeld earlier. Remember the episode where they're talking about your representative shows up when you start dating? It's the perfect you. It's the one the person you want everyone to meet, and they get to know you, and vice versa. And then your representative gets the day off, and you show up and you freak out on somebody. You know.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's a bad scene.
yeah.
That's why just turning 62 a few weeks ago,
Oh,
I
happy
told
birthday.
my mom and sister. Thanks. I told my mom and sister that I decided when I was 61 that I was done not being honest about everything. You know, I mean, sure, you're not going to hurt a friend or close family members. You know, if they're, you know, something horrible happened, you're not going to say everything maybe that you're thinking. But I'm talking about just dealing with other people. If I don't like something, if something's hurting me, I'm just going to tell people, look, I don't like that.
That's good that you're going to be honest. Hey,
Yeah,
You know, it's just a total honesty policy.
That's good. James, can you hear me, James?
You know,
Yeah, that's good. Do you think that women are on a more complicated level thought-wise and men are simpler in general?
I think they're equal intelligence. Oh, sorry, that's for James.
I want to include James in the conversation, Brian.
Sorry, James.
Oh, that can be silent. I wouldn't say that. Well, I would say that women are definitely more complicated because whatever is supposed to be the magic Pac-Man pattern that wins the game changes on a daily, if not hourly basis. So, yeah,
For
the whole
everyone.
Well, I don't know. I think what makes me happy today will make me happy tomorrow most of the time. I think that James. I think the maturity level of the person, you're dealing with has a lot to do with that. Don't you think, James?
it's not been my experience that certain people ever achieve maturity.
Oh, that's true. I agree with that.
I agree with that.
So yeah, but James, if you were dealing with, I know you have you've gone sour on women. I mean, you have a lot of interesting women friends, but it seems that you've gone sour on relationships. But
Me, yeah. Ask him if he's gone sour. Okay.
but
James, have you gone sour?
No, I wouldn't describe it as gone sour as much as it's a thing of there's a certain time in your life where you have to leave the Disney fantasy and deal with the world as it is.
Whoa.
Okay. Is that sort of along the same idea of when life hands you sour cream or
Grapes.
or
Sour
well,
grapes.
well, when
Close.
he said sour, I just went to
Or
sour
lemons.
cream for some reason. I was thinking make pound cake.
yeah,
It's a good recipe. I'm just saying.
yeah, I think that I've gone from hopeful to cynical back to hopeful. There is a path forward to hopeful.
Kenny, do you think that women are more complicated than men generally? Men are simpler folk?
No, men aren't simple.
Men aren't simple? So we're equally complicated, both sexes.
I mean, women actually have their own mindset. I mean, if you don't know where they're coming from, it's better if you ask questions. And
God.
don't assume.
Don't
Exa-
assume,
You
right.
know, yes, the
That's,
old.
Always
that's
ask
beautiful.
questions.
That-
Assumption is the mother of all fuck-ups.
You
Yeah.
brought that right. That's the old never assume because it makes an ass out of you,
You
and
and
me.
me, yeah.
You brought that right into the 21st century with that. It's mother
Yeah.
of all fuck ups. I like it.
Well,
I remember
I-
one of my high school teachers putting that on a blackboard. I can't remember which one.
Yeah.
Long time.
Sorry, we're trying to keep to the topic, Brian. Beth, you
what's
might want to
Sorry,
funny,
I'm not
when you
listening,
mentioned about the mindset, one of the things I like to watch are some of these home renovation shows where a fabulous designer goes in and remodels a couple's home, and then they take them out on these tours and they ask each person, the husband and the wife, or together the couple, oh, and what kind of kitchen would you like? And one will say, oh, I love all white cabinets and I would like chrome. And and the other looked at the person, oh my God, no, I want some color and I need rustic. So what you've seen in just a few seconds is that how these people feel about their environment is completely different, which means there's other things about the relationship that they feel completely different about. But because of maybe that initial chemistry that was very strong and the commitment they made, so maybe they're fully aligned in a professional outlook.
Greg,
And then
oh,
after
I'm sorry to
that,
interrupt. I'm sorry to interrupt, Celeste. Go on.
yeah. And then after that, maybe they're focused on child rearing, or maybe they have now to become care providers. So the influence that they have on the relationship as a couple becomes diluted with a lot of different things. And if you already had some baseline differences that you didn't talk about in the early stages of the relationship because of the fascination and the chemistry, it's really hard to unravel that. And and the job then of the designer in these episodes is, and you'll see how now am I going to make this a home for the two of them, and not just a home for Sally or not just a home for Sam. I have to make this a cohabitable, amiable, lovable space that the two of them will enjoy.
So that's
And-
acting like a counselor almost,
Yes.
in a way.
There has to be some
Yes.
negotiating.
Yes,
Between-
negotiating, and then there's sometimes a big surprise for the couple because sometimes they look at you and say, "Pop a color, where did yellow and red come from?" And it could be either male or female because
Yeah.
the tastes are the taste. And I said, because I hate that sterile thing. I hate that all great. I'm not sleek. I'm rustic. I'm more traditional. I don't like that Scandinavian. So these are things that the people may have dreamed about as part of a relationship.
Hmm.
I want a home to share with a person that I can love and be comfortable in and all the rest.
Yeah.
And then you find out you don't share the dream. Right?
Yeah, they sound spoiled, actually. They sound-
Yeah, and and that's that. So you're fixing your house, but now you got to fix your relationship.
It's a good
Because
metaphor.
one of the things that we all know, if we have kids, they are temporary,
Yeah.
right? You devoted to them for an amount of time, and then off they go to do their thing, and now you're with this person. Do you know this person, or is this person a stranger now?
But that's communication, right? That's where that piece comes in. That's what Brian was saying. That's what Kenny was saying. If you don't ask the questions,
That's what I'm always saying.
and if you don't know each other,
The thing is, I really think, Beth, you should bring Richard Wicken into the program and see what he thinks about any of this stuff.
Oh, is
Maybe
he
you
still
can ask
here?
him something.
Hello, Mr.
He's
Wicker.
right over there.
I'm still learning from everything I'm hearing.
so you don't have anything in
Richard,
particular.
you're a master of communication too. Because,
Wow, I didn't know that.
well, I mean, I've always appreciate when when you return an email to me, you divide up my email to you and give me in sections, and you give me answers to each of my paragraphs or so.
Does that emotionally satisfy you as a friendship with Richard that he does that?
Absolutely.
because it means he read it
Okay.
carefully,
Yeah,
right?
and each
Yeah, he
each
took it
point
seriously.
is addressed.
Yeah.
and
Emotionally
absolutely.
satisfying, yeah.
Yeah.
You should hear the conversations me and Richard have. You wouldn't think so.
Wow.
Well,
What?
the whole thing is when even a friendship, it doesn't have to be a relationship.
Of course, I was saying you can have male friends of women who are emotionally satisfying them as friends, and then they can have husbands and boyfriends that are satisfying them emotionally. It goes all across the board there.
Do you agree, Richard, that emotionally satisfying a woman is a gift to a man to himself?
Wow, that's beautifully stated.
I
would
think it
agree
is,
with
Beth.
that.
I think it definitely is.
A gift from a man to himself.
Yeah.
Wow.
Makes you feel good.
That
about
was
it.
that
Makes
was
you feel good.
beautiful, beautifully put.
That was so eloquent.
I'm sitting in the host chair today. I just want to tell.
Did you think that up on
Very
the
well.
spot?
Yeah.
Nice.
That was something.
Can you smell the
I'm
smoke in
changing
here?
I'm changing my tombstone now. I'm putting that on it. I had a different thing on my tombstone, right? I change it every few days. so.
We got to get a guy to carve that out now.
James, is that true? That it's a gift to you if you emotionally satisfy women as a friend and a lover? It's a gift to yourself.
James? No?
He doesn't.
Let him
think-
answer.
Big no.
He doesn't. Do you not believe you can emotionally, or not just you, but men cannot emotionally satisfy women?
You can, and it lasts in seconds.
Oh,
Oh, seconds.
Just for seconds?
Okay, let's.
Seconds is the max, James?
Well, you need a wrinkle in time. And, and
All right. So I've had other relationships besides Greg.
What?
Really?
Oh
Wow.
my God.
I have.
I'm shocked.
And I have never, and I kept waiting for the moment when we were going to bond because we knew each other and we were having conversations and we knew each other like friends. I kept waiting for that to happen. So it's
On mine, yeah.
it's not
Okay.
it's not that just the idea that somebody was listening and was commenting constructively and sometimes disagreeing with me vehemently, but that's because he heard me, and that was okay too.
Yes.
So yes, I think there's some men, and I don't know if I was the bad communicator or I
No,
didn't,
the men are usually bad communicators.
I didn't know how to ask.
Usually on the men.
But I
Paula.
didn't even know how to ask for what I needed because I didn't know what was missing. There was always something missing.
Well, sometimes men can supply what's missing without you knowing that what's missing.
But I wrote a poem one time and I said, was there something missing in everyone, or was that piece of blue sky for the puzzle missing in me?
Well, no, a
And-
lot of men suck.
But I know, but there was something else I couldn't communicate. So,
As young women, I don't think because we're taught about how we should be prepared to be in a relationship, that it may or may not have anything to do with what we actually want to do with our lives,
mhm,
because you're busy preparing for a man to be in your life.
mhm.
And that changes as time goes on, and it is as difficult and challenging as it may be for men to communicate. I think it's equally challenging for women because they can go up, they can go down. They can be here on Tuesday, there on Friday, and that's because of our own growth process. Sometimes you really don't know what you want until you've been exposed to something else. And then you have to say, wow, I
Ah,
thought this, but now that's not it.
yeah.
Right.
You're
You know,
allowed to change your mind.
So,
Yeah,
we have to, that channel of communication has to go both ways.
And
And I think there's equal difficulty as we mature and evolve,
well,
learn
yeah.
about ourselves.
What you said about not knowing what you're missing until you see it someplace else, that is profound because we're not taught what to look for in a mate. We are expected to know that. Like, my mother showed me how to pick a tomato. What to do, how to take a stalk of, a head of celery, whatever you call it, and sniff it to see if it was ripe and fresh. She told me those things. But when it came to a man, she was just like, grab yourself a man.
She probably didn't know
luck.
how to do that herself.
That's true, Tom. She probably didn't.
Yeah.
It's
I
just-
mean,
And
I,
Any
in our
port in
house,
a
it
storm.
wasn't that.
Yeah.
In our house, because we were raised in a military family,
Uh-huh.
so my dad was king. But I assure you that my mother was the power behind the throne, and we were not taught. I have one sister who now lives in Portugal. We were taught that we had to have the resources and the capacity to be independent, so that if anything happened, you would not be, out on the street.
Your mother was smart because that was not how most of the women I knew at the time were taught. They were taught, find a man who can support you,
yeah.
and then you will do this X number of chores, and they will do these things, and you will
Yeah.
have
Yeah,
and
No,
it's
no.
very traditional.
Well, what I was always saying is nowadays, with women in the workforce so much in the 21st century and the late 20th century, you should be looking for a man to emotionally satisfy you. Want to
Absolutely.
emotionally satisfy, not be the breadwinner or be your, the guy who would bring the money in, but
Right.
he should be bringing the love in.
You're right. I think that's
That's what you should look
it
for.
is changing.
Am I right?
Love it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just a partnership,
Am I right, James?
Paula,
Yeah.
Here's
Yes.
here's the thing, Greg.
Paula, and
Wait,
ladies.
Brian, James is still
hold on,
finishing.
Brian.
Brian, we got James to
James
finish
is,
this
James is
rhetorical.
Go
talking.
ahead.
Okay, go ahead.
I thought he was just kind of sloughing that off. He wasn't
No, he's
gonna
talking.
answer it.
No,
Sorry.
he's talking.
No, he started talking.
Sorry.
It's really easy to find a guy who can pay the bills, discipline the children, make a plan for the future, and execute that plan. It is not easy to find a guy who can read your mind and pivot like a pinball in the machine of what is it that you're thinking
Well,
now.
I think women have to learn how to express what they need. That's what I mean. If a woman were to say to you, and instead of having you read your, I hate that stuff, that read your mind stuff.
Yeah.
I always tell women, don't
Where's my
do that.
crystal ball?
Yeah. If you can communicate your needs, and they say, okay, well, I need to explore being a writer, or I need to, something simpler. I need to have some time in nature, like every few days. I mean, if she was able to express that to you and not want you to read her mind, would you be willing to adapt to that?
Yeah, Jay.
Well, there would be nothing to adapt to. The problem that I see with many women is that they take this thing to heart about a woman's prerogative to change her mind, but they don't look at the fact that every time you open door A, you're closing door B, and that gearing up to do something has a cost to it. So a perfect example of this is the relationship between Sonny and Cher. When Sonny Bono met Sherilyn Sarkeesian, she was a very young girl who got to hang out at a recording studio and ended up being a background singer because, hey, we need some girls to just kind of hoot in the background here. Oh, you're a girl, come with me. He wanted to get with her, so he tried to impress upon her that I work here at the studio and I know all of these famous people, and I can get you more gigs like this where you'll end up on records that will end up being famous. Her first song that she sang background on was It's in His Kiss. But at any rate, their relationship started based on her desire to break into the music business. He then wrote I Got You, Babe, specifically trying to create a hit song that he could do with her so that she wouldn't be the backup singer, she would be the featured duet person.
Mm-hmm.
Became a monster hit, still big today. It catapulted them from one-hit wonder status to an actual career that even had its own TV variety show.
Mm-hmm.
Loved it.
When the TV show went off the air because she didn't want to do it anymore, their recording career faltered because they were no longer in front of America every week. And Sonny was like, well, that's the way the ride goes. You can ride about 3 years on one hit song, and when your hits stop, you can kind of count 3 years to the day, you're not going to be able to book a concert or anything. And he was perfectly fine with the idea of, let's just retire. We've got enough money to not worry about things. And what he understood from her communication was she didn't want to be a has-been. She didn't want to fade away. So he made it his business to get them back on top. And when he got them back on top, she divorced him because you're just all into this entertainment thing and trying to get back to the top. And he's like, are you kidding? I could have stayed at home all this time. I could have been sitting in a boat fishing. This was for you. And she didn't speak to him for decades. And then, of course, when he died, she's the one crying the loudest because, oh, he was such a wonderful guy and did all these things for me. But you didn't appreciate it while he was alive. And of course, today, the fact that she is still kicking everything to stay relevant, that he was right. She really didn't want to give up the fame. He was the one who was ready to go home.
You know what? I'm sorry, James. I disagree. I think that Cher was beyond giving. I don't think anyone was going to let her give up her celebrity because she was such a big thing, and still is. You know, there's a little conversation she had with her mom. Apparently, her mom said, "Why don't you just marry a rich man and live your life?" And she said, "Mom, I am a rich man. I can do whatever I want." You know,
Right.
She's,
Yeah.
and Sonny, you know, definitely he was the catalyst in their relationship getting started, but once everyone got a glimpse of Cher and what she was all about, you know, it
And
was,
her voice.
and her voice
was so
yeah.
much better than Sonny's. I
Yeah.
mean, Sonny.
I
Had,
mean, here we are, you know, we're not arguing about Sonny and Cher, but
Yeah.
nobody needs to defend Cher, I don't think, especially Kenny Vaughn.
Don't
No.
put me in this. Don't put me in this.
Do you think that it was a matter of Cher not voicing herself correctly to Sonny? As we sit around here, even at this is almost like a family table. Do you think it all goes back to the family table and having conversations and having?
Everything goes back to the family table. If you're in a relationship, whether you're girlfriend and boyfriend or husband and wife, it goes back to the so-called family table.
I think
giving,
so.
giving.
And there should be communication all the time. And unfortunately, people are not communicating as well as they should. That's the whole point of my book and the show is to try to communicate.
Right, but who in this group had a family that sat at the table and talked about positive things?
We
not,
did.
Not my family.
Oh, good for you, Celeste. You're the-
No, I mean, you know why? Because we were in another country, right? As I mentioned, my dad is career military. My mother had no passion for living in the United States for a lot of different reasons. Primarily, you know, the way the laws were treating African Americans, Black
Right.
folks, it was not. So my mom was like, "Oh no." So we spent most of the time in Europe. We did not always live in base housing. We lived in, you know, housing close to the base, but on the economy, as they would say.
Mhm.
And so we had breakfast together and we had dinner together.
It's
I mean, we
huge.
had to support one another. We had to talk about our school. I mean, and
That's
I want to
good.
say, even on my dad's side, they were from Texas, Louisiana folks. They were staunch Catholics. I call them voodoo Catholics because you know my grandma would throw holy water everywhere. I mean, it was
That's
you know,
that's
it
a good
was
description.
something. Yeah, and on my mother's side, you know, my grandmother worked. My grandfather was worked at DuPont. He was an alcoholic, and he was abusive. So my mother came up in a home environment where there were high expectations. They all went to college. But she knew that she did not want to live in a house where, you know, the head of the house was abusive, alcoholic, none of that.
Well,
So,
she
you
had. She sounds like she had a strong ethic, and she understood the importance of communication. But I mean, I didn't grow up in a house like that. You know, it was eat your
Yeah.
dinner. You know, we're not talking. We're just eating. And
Yeah.
You know, Brian wanted to mention something a little earlier.
Yeah.
Brian, we're passing the proverbial fork over to you to say something at the table right now.
Yes.
Go right ahead.
What kind of things do women say that should cue men into the fact that they need to communicate about something and that they're upset about something? Like, what are examples or what signs do women generally exhibit so that men can understand women better?
well, how it depends on if you're talking about healthy women or unhealthy women. I mean,
Right.
Healthy,
what's
hopefully,
wrong?
yeah.
Nothing.
Yeah.
Well, healthy, he's saying.
Nothing. Okay.
Brian's saying
With a
healthy.
healthy woman, she might like sigh and say I know I don't know what you mean by that, you know, and then try to figure out, because it's amazing we can talk to each other at all because our languages are so different.
Kenny.
Kenny.
Kenny, what can I get you something?
I was scrolling through my Facebook. Sometimes I run across the reels, and then you click on it and you just scroll.
Yeah, right.
Steve Harvey had a
Oh,
show.
yeah, Steve.
Just saw it. He had a list of all things that women say.
Was
And
this
one-
the Family Feud thing?
No, no, no.
Oh,
He had
okay.
his own show, Steve Harvey show.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's a tough
And he
talk
would
show.
he would write something a woman would say,
Uh-huh.
but a guy would read it as what he thought it meant, but then
Right.
down below it said what it meant.
Yes.
Wow, that's-
Code.
It was a whole
code.
list.
That's
It
good
was a
stuff
list
for
of
Brian
code.
to check out.
Yeah, yeah.
So
that-
was it totally off then?
No.
The guys guessed
Uh-uh.
wrong most of the
Oh
time?
hell
or-
yeah! It never
They
means
did,
what we
yeah.
think.
yeah,
Yeah.
and
That's
it's
good. That's good information.
it's hard. We shouldn't just blame men, because women, if you want something, but it's hard because, well, women from my generation were told, first of all, not in so many words, but basically we were taught that we were supposed to not have needs. And that is, so when you found that you had needs, you were guilty. Like, oh, I would like to do this, but I can't because I've got to do this and I've got to do that. So
right, but things have changed
Yeah,
in the late
th-
20th century,
yes.
and we're a quarter century into this century.
right, they have changed.
Things have changed a lot. That's what we're talking
But,
about.
That goes into empathetic thinking, though.
Yeah,
What,
we're-
if I do this,
But if
is it
I
gonna affect
wasn't
somebody
aware,
else?
if
Paul,
I right,
Paul's saying something.
I'm
About
sorry,
Okay,
Paul. Paul,
yeah.
go right ahead.
Well, no, I'm saying you're constantly referring to your life and the way you were brought up, but like Greg says, that's past and gone, and now we're in today's future where women totally don't think the way you think or when we used to think when we were growing up. So
right.
it's
Right.
a whole nother ballgame.
But the women
Exactly.
the women of today, like my daughter's age, were raised by women who were raised by those women that I was raised by.
Yes.
I just so happened to get an education. I had an education. I got some psychology, so I kind of understood better. But a lot of times they pass down the same misinformation from generation to generation.
Sure.
Oh, I get that, but that's
Yeah.
but I mean, yeah, but the future holds is well, I don't know what the future holds. It's really screwed up. That's all I can say. But women now, they look at things a lot differently. Like even if like this coming generation, okay, they're going to be brought up with the generation before them, which would be, well, not us, but our kids, and so I think the way the thought pattern is going to be a lot different. Women are a lot more independent. They know what they want. It's not like they're the bread or the guy's got to be the breadwinner anymore. It's equal, if not the other way now.
Yeah.
And I think one great thing this week is the nomination of Kamala is really a good sign. Everyone agree on that? Disagree on that?
Well, we don't. I don't know
Penny, you
what everyone's
disagree?
politics are, but
What?
I disagree.
It's not a good sign.
It's not an
She's a
important
racist.
sign. I mean, I just don't
It's
think
not even. It's not good or important.
there have been women heads of states around the world.
around
I'm
the
saying for the
world.
U.S.
But
for the
not in the
U.S.
US.
Beth, I'm saying.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah, we're the
I don't
only
know if
country.
she's exactly the shining example of the top, for lack of a better
No.
term, top dog for the position.
Well, she's quite qualified. She's been. I mean,
She's
she
been
was,
wandering around the White House for 4 years, if that's what you mean by
No,
qualified.
no, that's not what she's been doing.
We shouldn't probably get this
Yeah.
into a political
Yeah,
thing.
that's
Oh,
not.
why not?
That's not what she's. That's
I
not
don't
what
think
she's
we're
been
going to be
doing.
emotionally.
She was.
And I think it's an important
Right.
thing in American politics.
She has quite. She's got quite a bit of background in government, and she's a lawyer. I mean,
She is accomplished. I'm not going to take that away from her, but I don't think that she has exactly performed her job in the best of interests.
and what
Correct.
what are the
You know,
examples
and
of that?
There's a point there. A point there is the
Well,
fact that she was a hidden force.
Yeah, all
Because one of the things
all
that
vice
surprised
presidents,
me,
yeah.
yes, was
Yeah, that
She
in
said
history, vice
five-
presidents never
5
really did that
days.
much.
5
Well,
days.
this
before
just turned
the Russian
politics. So
invasion
Yeah.
of
let's.
Ukraine,
How's the
she
weather?
was meeting with Zelensky.
yeah.
Who
Yeah.
knew that?
Yeah,
Who
right.
knew that?
She's done right.
There was a lot of different things happening.
Right.
But
Yes.
Right, then
that
she
they didn't talk about her.
And you know what?
she stayed under the radar because that's what a vice president does.
I think that it's important to be able to agree to disagree is very emotionally satisfying because otherwise you can make yourself fucking nuts.
Yeah, I agree with that. I agree with that. But
Well, I'm just saying that I think to some amount of millions of women, it's emotionally satisfying to have a woman be nominated for president again, just like Hillary was. It's the second time nominated to be the
To
president.
be on the ballot.
Well, she's nominated just like Hillary was in 16. She's nominated. This is the second time it's happened, and I think it's emotionally satisfying to some millions of women. Am I wrong about that?
Oh no, you're absolutely correct.
Well, that's why I say that's why I'm saying it's good and important in terms of the emotional satisfaction of women in America. That's what we're talking about here.
Maybe I'm already emotionally satisfied in that regard because I just don't really find that a woman has to be on the ballot.
Well,
I
what
think
I'm
the
saying-
best candidate should be on the ballot.
What I'm saying is
And that was not allowed.
Donald Trump is a male chauvinist pig. Is that correct? Do you agree that he's a male chauvinist pig?
I don't know that he's a male chauvinist pig.
Oh my God! Oh my God!
I mean, no, I mean,
Greg,
I want to
Greg, you
get.
just made it. You're making it political.
I want to get off the
Did I do it
political.
right?
yeah.
Okay.
I'm
Yeah.
not
Thank you.
comfortable with the political thing.
Right, because the other thing I wanted to say,
I'm not comfortable with it.
Satisfy your woman, Greg. Satisfy your
Yes,
woman. Okay?
we've got
When James was
9
talking
minutes
about,
to keep rolling.
All right, let's get really radical here and flip it
no,
180
I was
and
thinking
say,
about what James was talking about
Okay.
when he talked about, doing, and the share story, for example, is a good example. Some of these things that women need, I think we're talking about this communication thing. In my personal opinion, we're talking about a type of woman who has evolved to where she needs things beyond basic needs. So when you find women, any woman, trapped in the cycle of fighting for basic needs, struggling in that day-to-day living, she's looking for a partner who is a provider.
Okay.
right.
Yes.
And the rest of that thing may not matter as much as having a providing partner. And a good example and an attitude, and this could be, influence at work. I had to go by Tops on Niagara Street, which is not my usual Tops. I'm usually over here on Elmwood because I live closer to there. But I had to make a stop by Tops on Elmwood Avenue. And there was a young girl there, very pretty young girl, earring, tattoo, so modern looking. And she was talking to the girl in front of her peer, look, same age kind of thing. And she said, and I was astonished. She said, "I'm not made for work. I'm made to be taken care of. And that's what I want. I'm sick of this." I mean, and she was serious because the other girl said, "I understand. I'm going to this job. I got to take the baby over to my mom's house." I mean, and they were,
they were tired.
disparaging
Yeah.
of where they were. And their job was to find a man who was going to help relieve this anxiety. So whatever the person, and ideally the guy's not, going to be abusive, but then, they twist and turn to attract this guy. And maybe the guy is looking for, someone who cooks like his mother. And the woman is like, "I don't want to cook. I want you to order something and bring it to the house."
This sounds
right?
like the women that James has been running into.
Right. But but some of the and really it's a legitimate thing. When women are struggling, because 9 times out of 10 they're struggling for a lot of different reasons. I mean, there's still an inequity for women across the board at a lot of different levels. You have to be at a certain level of some kind of stability and security in yourself to be able to communicate beyond bread the next day.
Yeah.
And so talking about women who can communicate at that level is very different than talking to a struggling woman. And she could be young, she could be middle aged, she could be old. But if you're in struggle mode, you are not looking to, as they
Well,
make women say,
when
you know,
yeah,
be
when
beautiful and happy, be sexy, be all these things to make your man happy. You're like, damn, no, the light bill do. No.
well, when my mother lost my father when she was only 39 years old,
Mm-hmm.
you know, she had no education. She didn't even go to high school. And her goal was to find a husband to take care of her. Even though she still worked, she cleaned for a living, but that she was looking for security, and that's that was her goal,
Yes.
because she had I was 8, and
Yep.
she didn't, and the struggle was real. You know, she didn't have a
Yes.
mortgage to pay because my father had just paid off the mortgage, but still she had bills, she had responsibilities, and she needed to find someone to take care of her.
Yes.
They
And-
call those gold diggers these days.
Well, it wasn't so much gold digging. She was
No.
going to take care of him too.
Yeah, no, it's
She
companionship.
was going to cook for him. She was going to
No,
clean for
I'm so-
him. Yeah.
But
I mean,
I'm talking about nowadays, not
Yeah.
not in the past.
yeah, but I'm saying this was her her worldview. Her worldview is you take care of your man and he takes care of you.
And there's companionship as
Yeah.
the gift to both people.
Yeah, she kind of screwed up that one,
And the
but
comfortability of being with
Yeah, and
somebody.
gold digging, let's be real clear. The man has to have some gold to be dug. Okay.
Oh, snap.
Oh, absolutely.
Right? Yeah. So if you're just out here looking for someone to help you make sure you can have, you know, fish fries on Friday, that's not gold digging. That's moving beyond basic needs. That's so both of you are not
Well-
hungry, you know.
Right.
And that's where that, you know, the line that comes in, a man's weight is hardest through his stomach, you know, so plenty of sex and
Not
plenty
anymore.
of food and he'll be fine. That doesn't help you. Okay.
No.
That helps him.
Mhm.
And I think we have to appreciate what that means in the bigger picture of things. You know,
yeah.
Paul, I think what you described is what I kind of liken to we all want to be mothered. We all want somebody to take care of us. In that
Oh yeah,
in
for
that,
sure. Yeah.
Well,
um,
and some people need different kinds of care, like emotional care or physical care. You know, it depends on the person. And in the model, in the traditional model of marriage, you're taking care of each other.
right.
yes.
But that doesn't really exist as much
Ideally, yeah, that's
anymore.
what it's supposed
Yeah,
to be.
ideally, exactly.
And now you've got kids to take care of and take them to soccer practices and all that other stuff.
Yeah.
And it's things, relationships get lost in the shuffle. They get lost in the carpool sometimes.
Yeah.
I'm so glad I'm over with all that. Now I just got grandkids to deal with,
Mm. I love
and I
my
can send them home.
I love
and
my
I can send them home.
grandkids are
Well, I
great.
have a grandchild that lives with me. I can't send him home. I'm sending him to you.
Ah,
Yeah, I like that.
Oh,
Brian, we've got 2 minutes left. You
Yeah.
wanted to mention something else?
Brian,
Oh, I'm sorry.
you
You wanted to mention something else a little bit? a couple minutes
No,
ago?
I actually, I was just going through my convoluted brain was, I like the way Celeste describes relationships and the dynamics of relationships, like how, like you go into a relationship and you're high on the sugar high of falling in love, and then, you know, maybe you expected that person to be somebody else and you didn't really realize who they were. And then after a while, you start finding out who they were, and they're not exactly who you thought they were. And maybe that you're not either, what, you know?
Right.
yeah.
Good point.
And I like the way she described all that because I've thought about that.
Yeah.
So,
And that's why being friends first can be helpful, because if you're friends first,
yeah.
you know what you're getting into.
Yeah.
hmm
Well, Greg, I always tell everybody when I talk about your book, How to Emotionally Satisfy a Woman, I tell everybody it's a love letter to his wife, Paula. I really, truly believe that because it's all of the things that you know make a relationship thrive and be special. And I think it's a really wonderful thing that you've written this book. And you're trying to help so many men, too.
Well, When I first met him, he told me the first thing he told me when we went on our first like friend date is that he's going to try something new. He's going to if he doesn't like something, he's going to tell me immediately. I don't like that. And he did, and I loved it because I had just been hornswoggled by somebody who told me they liked everything I liked for 7 years.
Yeah.
You
Well,
know?
that's like Paul said, the being honest about what you like or dislike. And I've really enjoyed doing the show with everybody tonight. Thanks for joining on Zoom and on Facebook.
And okay.